R70 Management Portal. In this nugget, we are going to cover one of the new subjects that you really want to know about inside the R70 CCSE, and that is the Checkpoint Management Portal. We're going to see exactly how to run through the virtual machine configuration and the steps that you want to do for setting this up in your own lab environment or a production environment, and what kind of skills you want to have if you're going to be using a virtual machine. Then we actually will progress and see the software installation steps and just basically give you that step by step. And to make you feel completely comfortable with the software, I want to give you the step by step to help you install the product. Then we will look at our actual smart dashboard configuration, where we're going to see exactly how to configure everything in our dashboard in order to get our smart portal or our R70 management portal up and running. And then we will navigate through the portal settings using our web browser just to make sure everything is set up the way that it should be and to make sure that it's configured the way that we would like it to be. So go ahead and take some wonderful notes. Let's continue on from here and check out the R70 management portal. Hello my friends, let's configure Checkpoint's management portal for R70, also known as Smart Portal. A lot of the times you're going to find yourself where you need to give evidence or to give a third party such as an auditing firm or upper level management access to your Checkpoint management server so they can verify policies and to be able to speak intelligently about the security posture that your company is putting out there. Now, we don't want to give the keys to the castle to people who are not trained or qualified, and that's where the Checkpoint Management Portal comes in place, and it's going to be a great tool to give us the capabilities that we want to give them that access, but also to control exactly what they can do for us. And that's just basically running a web portal over the internet to our Checkpoint management server. So the first thing we're going to do here is configure our virtual machine to get this particular box up and going. So let's go ahead and start with that. We're going to select new virtual machine. We're going to choose typical, and I already have our R70 CD inside the machine. So we're going to go next, to Linux, next, and let's just call this one our Nugget Dash Portal. Okay, and we'll capitalize that. That looks good. Okay, and let's give it its hard drive space. Let's go with 25 gigs. We may not need that much, but I have a couple terabytes on this box, so that's what I'm going to use. So let's customize our hardware. I'm not going to need a floppy here, so that can go. USB controller can go. Sound card can go. Processors, we'll go ahead and put that at 2 processors. Memory, let's go ahead and give that 512 megs of RAM. The actual network adapter, we're going to attach this to the inside of our Nugget cluster network, which is our 1021 network. So we're going to stick it on the same virtual NIC or virtual switch, which is VNet 2. That way it can communicate with things in the 1021 network. So that looks pretty good. We have our memory, we have our hard drive, all that specified. We see that we're going to use a NAT option right here where we're actually going to use the VMNet 2. This will change. The display looks good there. Let's hit OK, and we see we have a 25 gig hard drive. So let's go ahead and click finish here. And what we'll see is this is actually going to start up the actual installation process for us. So let's step through the installation of the management portal, then we'll dive into the dashboard of it and get things configured. So we can go ahead and close off that option. And this should just take a couple minutes for it to start up the actual installation process for us and to be able to boot from our R70 CD. So we should see about a 90-second by default when it's going to spin up the CD and then ask us to install Secure Platform. So we'll hit enter here, and it's going to load the kernel and go through the normal operations that Splat will do whenever it's loading up. Now you can basically think that the management portal is going to give you a lot of capabilities to see things without having to log directly into Smart Console. So not only can you give this to a third party such as that audit firm that we talked about, you can also use it for your own need. Maybe you're out of the office and you want to set up a NAT on it, and we may do that. We're going to set up a static NAT to our internet segment in order to give us access to our Nugget management portal remotely. And the correct way to do that is we'll set up a static NAT, but we will also set up a one-to-one security rule saying that maybe the public IP at your home can only talk to the management portal's public IP and have a one-to-one security rule. That way it's locked down, it's functional, but it's very secure. So just give it a couple seconds here and we should get into the actual option here where we can step through the configuration of secure platform for our management portal. So let's just give it one moment. We'll pause for a second and come back and check things out. Alright guys, now we can see that we have our standard secure platform screen here, and let's step through the installation process. So we're going to go ahead and go over to OK. And once the next menu pops for us here, we're going to specify our IP information and everything else that we need to do in order to get this management portal up and running for us. Now the IP I'm going to assign to this is we're going to use the 10.20.1.26 with the 24-bit subnet mask, and the default gateway for this particular box will be the internal interface of our Nugget cluster. In this case is 10.20.1.1. So let's go ahead and just tab through these particular menus. All you really need to do is go to OK right here. And then secure platform is perfectly fine, so we'll go to OK here. It's going to read our package information. We'll go to OK. And now we need to give it that IP we were talking about. So let's go with the 10.20.1.26. And we're going to set our actual default gateway to 10.20.1.1. And we'll hit OK here. And one thing we're going to see, this is going to listen on a default port of 4433, I believe, by default. I'll check on that, but after we get through the actual install, we'll check that out as well. So we're going to go ahead and just leave this in place for now. We might need to change something up in a few minutes, but we'll take care of that. So we'll just go ahead and hit OK here. And we'll hit OK again, and we'll step through the actual install here. Now by default, all Splat installs are going to listen on 443, but the actual management portal, I believe, is 4433. But let's let it run through the install. It should be done just a couple minutes here after it gets done with the actual extraction of all the Splat information. But we'll pause for a moment, come back once this has completed its actual installation, and we'll continue on with the configuration of management portal. Well guys, we can see that it's still installing all the Checkpoint software blade information as part of our secure platform install. While that's running, we're going to go ahead and jump back over to our Nugget management server and set up the GUI options that we have to have in place to get our management portal running. So let's go ahead and open up our Nugget management server. So what we need to do here is we basically need to create a Checkpoint host. So under the Checkpoint section, we're going to do a right click and we're going to choose host. And for the Checkpoint host here, it's going to create a new object for us, and we're going to need to specify all the information we want to use for this particular host. So this is going to be our Nugget dash portal, and we said we're going to give it the actual IP of 10.20.1.26 and the communication. Now we're going to have to set up SICK in a few minutes once we run through the remaining part of the secure platform install, but I just wanted you to see the overall structure of the GUI here, and that way we can see exactly how we're going to configure everything. So what we need to do at this point, we can see we're going to use an open server, and the version and the OS and all that type of stuff will typically pull over whenever you set up your secure internal communication or your SICK key. But under management here, we have a few options here. We have network policy management, endpoint policy management, login and status, but what we're going for is our management portal. And that's pretty much what we need to do with this particular object at this time. We can change the color on it. Let's say if we like blue or red or whatever, we can change that color up. That's perfectly fine. Select this option. We set this information here. We'll go ahead and click OK at this point. And what this will do is actually save it under our checkpoint section. It's telling us about the actual specified OS, and that's perfectly fine. And we'll tell it that we want to continue for now. And once we get back to our actual GUI installation in a couple minutes here, we'll set up our actual secure internal communication key, and then we can continue on from here. So let's just give it a couple minutes, and we're going to jump back over and see where we're at here. Great, so the actual Splat installation is done. Let's go ahead and hit OK here, and let that pop out our actual CD, and then we'll continue on with the actual configuration of everything in just a couple minutes here. Okay guys, the actual management portal box has rebooted, and we're to the point now we can run through the command line configuration. So let's dive into PuTTY, and we're going to connect over to that box and configure everything up to get that box running. So it's going to be 10.20.1.26. So let's open that up, and we'll accept our RSA key here the first time we connect, and we're going to log in with our default information, which is admin and admin, which is also what we'll always use for a secure platform. As we know, anytime we are installing a new install, it's always admin for username and password. Now it wants us to give it a new password, so let's go ahead and put that information in. Alright, looks good. Username, I'm just going to keep it basic here and use admin. And just like any install, we'll do a sysconfig. And then we'll choose N for next, 1 for host name, 1 to set our host name. And this is going to be our nugget-portal. Okay, looks good. Looks good. Alright, that's set, so we can do E to exit. Domain name, so let's specify that to be Nugget Lab. So nuggetlab.com. Looks great. Always use our E to exit to get back. Domain name servers. I've been using this new public one from Google that I recently found out about, and you may want to use it on your own environment or your own test lab because it's a public DNS server and it works very well. So it's 8.8.8.8, and that's Google's public DNS. So now for network connections, we pretty much already configured the one connection that we need. We'll select N for next, and we're going to set our time zone here. Now for me, it's going to be Americas, then it's going to be 45 for the United States, and then I'm going to use option number 9 here for Central Time for me. Then I'll use 1 to approve this, and time zone's updated. So let's go ahead and look at our date and time settings. Okay, so those are off a little bit from what I'm really doing right now, so I'm going to correct those. So what we need to do at this point, just make sure our time is right between our management server and our actual management portal. Let's go ahead and correct those settings. Now for me, the actual date, let's set that. It's going to be option number 2, and it's going to be 08-28-2010. Okay, should take that. And let's go ahead and set our local time, and for me it's about 3:53. Okay, so let's set our local time, and we're going to set that now. That's going to be 03:53. Alright, looks good. Let's go ahead and do end to next. Alright, end to next again. And the next one more time. We'll hit yes right here to go ahead and accept the license agreement. We're going to tell it's going to be a new installation. Now you want to be very careful here that you don't hit the wrong option. Otherwise you're going to have to reinstall Secure Platform and start over again. So the only thing we want here is option number 7. So we're going to hit option number 7, and we see that it puts a little star in there, so we're good to go. We'll choose N for next. In for next again, and it's going to run through and extract the information, and it tells us that we are installing our management portal inside of this Secure Platform installation. So this will just take a couple minutes for it to run through, extract all the files, get everything in place, and then we'll jump back in, set up our secure internal communication key it's going to ask us for. Then we can set up any license values or anything like that if we were rolling out to our production environment. But for now, we're going to go ahead and say no on the license aspect. It's going to run through its cryptographic operations and ask us for our SIC key. So let's give it a SIC key. Okay, looks great. Alright, now it asks us if we want to start the products. Let's go ahead and start those up. And hit enter to continue. Okay, and we're good to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and set up our expert mode password. I just like to always go into expert mode on any of my boxes. That way I have a unrestricted kernel whenever I'm trying to do anything. So we'll do change shell space dash s space dash bin slash bash, and we're going to specify my username, which is admin. Alright, so that's been changed for that particular shell. Let's go ahead and clear this off, And now we should be able to go ahead and jump down to our actual GUI window right here. Open up the Nugget portal, go to communication, and let's put our communication key in. And we'll see if this works out for us here. We'll initialize it. Trust established. We're in great shape. So go ahead and test our sync status and we are communicating. So that's great at this point. Now we can click close. Now the next thing that you need to do in order to get everything up and running is you need to install database. Not an install policy, but an install database. So we'll go ahead and specify OK at this point. And then we'll go ahead and save our current policy. And we're going to push our actual database values to our management server as well as our Nugget portal server. So we'll do just a couple seconds here. It's still saving policy here, and then we'll be able to jump over to our actual policy menu and then do the actual install database. And the reason why you do that is to get the actual object information and the values that are in the objects 50.c, which runs in the background of your checkpoint management server. You have to get those in place, and it pushes that type of information out toward your Nugget management portal, and that way all the objects will sync between the two boxes. So we have an hourglass here. Let's go ahead and give it a couple minutes, let it finish up whatever it needs to do. We'll come back, check things out, and we should be good to go in just a couple minutes here. Alright guys, so the box has finished its process up, so let's go ahead and select policy, and we'll select install database. And we should get a menu here in just a couple seconds that'll allow us to specify exactly what we want to install our database to. Now we see our actual Nugget management server is one option. Now typically what you're going to do here is we'll push it out to the Nugget management server, and anything that the Nugget portal needs is basically going to do a sync behind the scenes. But this is just a good practice whenever you're installing any type of checkpoint management product that's going to interface with the Smart Center server or your management server, and that also includes any of your Aventia products. So if you're using Aventia Reporter or Aventia Analyzer, and there's been some name changes recently, and you're going to see Smart Event, which is basically replacing Aventia Analyzer, and you'll see Smart Reporter, which is replacing Aventia Reporter. But those are some of the other types of products, and if you're using a consolidation as part of those type of products, you need to install database as well. That's my point. So let's go ahead and hit OK here. Let it step through the actual installed database product and process, and once this gets done, we should be able to go ahead and jump out and see exactly what the management portal is going to look like for us when we log in the first time. So let's just let it finish up this actual process, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and pause again one more and get us some little bit better resources going on in the background here. Maybe give us a little bit more RAM to some of these virtual machines, because it's kind of, taking a little longer than I would like it to. So bear with me one moment here. I'll be right back, and we'll get everything figured out and running for us. Alright, so we can see that the actual database installation went through perfectly fine for us, and it synced the information from Nugget Management over to our management portal as well. So we'll go ahead and hit OK or close at this point, and now we should be able to go ahead and jump over to an actual Internet Explorer window. So what we're going to do is just do run, and I'm going to do IEXPLORE .exe. We'll bring this up, and this should give us a web page here in just a second. And we have the almighty Google loading for us, and let's go ahead and jump over and see if we can get into our management portal now. So we'll do https:// and we're going to use 10.20.1.26:4433. Hit enter. It should be connecting here. It's going to ask us to continue to the website, and that's perfectly fine. And we'll do that. And it's going to ask us about some pop-ups being blocked, so set that to always allow those pop-ups on our side. And as we can see, voila! What do we have? Management portal, and that is what we're looking for. So our login name is going to be our default admin. Let's put our password in. that we specified when we created it. Now the server, I don't know why it also gives you this after you logged in, but maybe you have multiple management portals deployed out in the world. But one thing I like to do is just go ahead and give it the IP again. So 10.20.1.26. We have some more options here. Let's see what this says. So we can do a session description as well if we want to put some information in there. But let's go ahead and try to log in now. We also have a read-only mode if we just kind of want to view some things as well. So let's give it a second, and it should load up the management portal for us, and we'll see all the great options that we have available inside of this product. It's a pretty cool product. I've really been using it a lot in the R70 release of code, and I found it to be quite useful for just about anyone who needs to see, exactly what's going on in the network security posture for a checkpoint security deployment. You may have different types of people that are going to come to you and ask, can we see exactly what's going on, or we need to verify our information. Maybe you're in a network security group and you're constantly in that classic corporate battle between your server group and maybe your networking group to specify exactly what's going on the firewalls. And maybe you want to set up the management portal for them to give them that access so they can get in and they basically don't bug you a whole lot, we should say. Well, this is taking a few minutes here, so let's give it a couple seconds here, let it load up its information, and we'll see exactly what's going on with our management portal. Okay guys, we're back at our management portal login. I'm going to try to attempt to log in one more time here, and I totally spaced one fact here that I want you guys to see. Basically for the server, we're always going to specify our management server. So whatever checkpoint management server we're going to use to view stats on. I was thinking it was a 10.21.26, but that totally doesn't make sense now that I think of it. So let's go ahead and try to log in one more time here. So we're going to specify our username and our password, and we're going to specify the IP address of our management server. In this case is 10.20.1.20. And now let's go ahead and attempt our login. And this should work out much better for us. Alright, so here we go. We say welcome to the management portal, and this tells us about our features. We can check our gateway status. We can actually look at our checkpoint logs. We can look at policies, and we can look at our objects. So great information right off the bat. It tells you have all these wonderful values available inside the checkpoint management portal. So let's go ahead and dive through some of the tabs and see exactly what we have here. So we're at our home. Let's go ahead and look at gateway status. And at this point, it's going to be able to run out and check our gateway status. Now, I have a couple boxes here that are kind of reported to be offline and different things like that. Now, this one right here, obviously, this is our Nugget portal we're on right now, so it's still updating some information. So let's give it a second here. It may need to refresh from the management server so it can realize that, hey, I really am online. So the main thing is that we're going to see the information, like I have our Nugget management server here. This is currently online here, and this will show all the same information you would see inside a SmartView monitor if you were trying to key in on something for system information and licenses and all that good information that you would typically be able to see inside of your SmartView monitor application. You can do via your management portal, so it's very helpful and useful. Now this box right here, I have it offline right now. This right here, let's check this particular firewall out, see if we can actually pull the settings we're looking for here. And this is perfectly fine. Like I said, I have the sync cable disconnected because this guy right here is down. But we can see all the other values, pretty much the same type of stuff we would see inside of our SmartView monitor application. But now we can see that our Nugget portal actually woke up and realized that it's online. So we can see that information there. Now we can actually dive in and look into our system information. It's going to go ahead and look at our calculation or whatever for the actual CPU information, the disk space information, everything like I said you would see in memory and all that great stuff that we would typically get via SmartView monitor, but we can get it from the web page. So let's go ahead and look at our logs. Also at this point we can see our traffic log, and we can also see our audit log. So that's really useful. We can see exactly what was accepted, and we have some key installs and all that good information. Under file operations, we can purge our active log file. We can switch to a log file. Maybe we want to look for a previous day's logs. We can do all that type of information from the web page, so it's pretty cool. And we can set up filters, auto scroll if we're looking at real-time information and we want to auto scroll through just like we would in SmartView Tracker. We can do that in our management portal. So some really cool options here. So we can tell it to go to the bottom at this point, and we see our last packet right here was this one. And as you can see, these little like hyperlinks here, if we click on that, we can see exactly what we're looking at. And this was actually a domain UDP or DNS packet from our management server going out to Google, and that was accepted. And it's pretty cool that we can do all this via the web page. I think this is just a really awesome product, and it's really useful for finding things. So we go to the bottom, and anytime you want to launch some type of investigation, maybe somebody changed something and you want to see exactly what happened to your checkpoint environment, we're always going to review our audit logs. And our audit logs pretty much tell us that we have logged into the Smart Portal, and it gives us that information right here. We can click on the actual hyperlink here, and it kind of bodes this screen and give us the record details, so we have all that information. So we could also click previous or next or any of that great information and scroll through the records. So very useful. So let's go ahead and go to policies, and we have a security policy option, or we have our IPS policy, which is under the management portal. So let's go ahead and select our security policy, and we get an option right here for our available security policies. I have one called Standard, which is the basic one you get whenever you install your management server. I have a new policy and one called New. And under the particular policies, we can see exactly what our security rules are. So very cool. That, like I said, if you had that auditor in the office and he wants to know exactly what is your network security policy, you can set up this type of access for them and give them maybe read-only access. But they really can't hurt anything here, because all they're basically doing is viewing information. So that's pretty much everything we can see under our security policy, and we can refresh this page just in case you have a checkpoint administrator who's actively making rule changes and different things to the actual security policy. You can use this to refresh, and that way you have all the latest and greatest information. And we can also see this type of information for our IPS, where we can see our network security information, our application intelligence, and our web intelligence. And we have our basic profiles here, or we can choose by the actual gateway. As you can see, that's a lot more resource intensive object that you're going to see for pulling up any type of IPS information, and that's pretty normal. That, you know, IPS is always going to be quite resource intensive because there's so many things running on it behind the scenes here. But this is pretty much the same type of stuff we would see inside of our Smart Dashboard application. And then we can go ahead and select objects at this point. We can look at some of our network objects, and this is exactly what was synced between our checkpoint management server and what it's being able to display to us inside of our checkpoint management portal. So we see that we have our Nugget cluster, our Nugget management server. We also have like our CPD shield and all the other various information. Now we can go to services here, and we see all the different services. We can refresh this. We can also filter for particular services right here. We have our VPN communities, our internal users, our internal user groups, and our time objects. So that basically gives us everything that we pretty much need to know about the overall GUI status inside of our management portal. Now we're going to look at a couple things via the command line, just so you're up to speed on exactly what you need to know for the command line side of the management portal. But like I said, it's a great product. Deploy it in your own environment. I know you're going to love Checkpoint Management Portal on R70. Alright guys, we've come a long way in this particular nugget on Smart Portal. We've seen all the wonderful GUI options that are available, how to deploy this particular software. We ran through the actual installation of the product. Now we could just do a couple of additional tasks to make the product more usable or more friendly for us to assess the particular server from outside the office would be your next option that's available. So under the actual checkpoint option here, we have our Nugget portal. Now, let's say, for example, we wanted to be able to extend this type of access to someone outside our company. Maybe it's an outside firm that's going to be performing our audit, maybe for HIPAA or for SOX or for any of the DoD based type of audits that you need to be compliant with. We could also go into our NAT section here and we can put a NAT on this particular firewall. So let's go ahead and set this to a static, and we're going to place a 172.20.20.26 on this particular box, and that'll basically just match up with what's in the general property for the host portion. And then we would make that a actual static NAT that we're going to install on our Nugget cluster. So we can go ahead and hit OK here. And then under our management traffic, you could place a rule here. So the natural place would be like right below your management traffic. You could drop in an actual rule that says policy, or do a rule, add rule below, and we'll call this one the management portal rule. So mgmt-portal. Alright, management portal. And the source for us would be, we were going to treat this like this is the internet. So we're going to have 172 connecting to this particular box. So anyone in our 172.20.20 segment could come toward this box, being the Nugget portal, over its defined services, which is 4433 by default. Now we're going to talk about where you can change that. If you have a strict security policy that says that you need to change any default port allocation for TCP to something maybe in the high or dynamic range, that is perfectly acceptable as well. We're going to dive in the command line in a few seconds to actually see how to do that as well. So let's go ahead and add our services here. So we're going to add object. Let's do CP. And under CP, we should have our CP portal as a choice. There's CP reporting, and there it is, our checkpoint smart portal. So as it stops scrolling here, we can scroll up a little bit. We should be able to select that. And there we go. So if we can edit that, we can see that it's 4433, and that's the actual connection that we're going to accept. We're going to log that, and after we log that, we're going to go ahead and make sure we install that directly on our Nugget cluster. So we'll select that as well. So that looks good. So if you had an outside auditing firm, you would ask them to give you the public IP address that they're coming from, and you can get that from a number of websites like whatismyip.com, or one of my favorites is ipchicken.com. And that'll display what your publicly accessible outside IP that you're natting behind to the rest of the world. So if that firm wants to come toward your smart portal application, you would do a one-to-one rule here and say whatever their public IP address is that they're coming from, drop that in here, and the destination would be your portal address, and you would accept the actual smart portal 4433 across the internet. But having this one-to-one rule here, you don't have to worry. It's going to be nice and secure because you're only allowing that one host from the internet access to your smart portal. Now that would typically be a best practice. Now we have our 172.20.20 segment that we're using as an example, but in the real world you would just have one host accessing your Nugget portal. So that pretty much takes care of that option. So we can go ahead and do a policy install and deploy this policy out to our Nugget cluster and get our Nugget portal actually natted out to the internet. So let's go ahead and do that. And while this policy is actually pushing, we're going to pause for a second, and then we'll dive into the command line to review some of the command line options that you want to know about for your Checkpoint Smart Portal. Alright guys, I have our actual PuTTY session opened up to our Nugget portal, and now we're going to review some of the command line options that you may need to want to use if you ever need to troubleshoot this application in your own environment. Well, one of the first commands that you really need to know about overall is the actual start and the stop of the product. So for example, a lot of times you may not install your Nugget portal on a separate box.
a lot of people are going to install this directly on top of their security management server or their smart center. And when troubleshooting a particular smart center option, you may want to be able to stop the actual portal session or section of the management server. And you can do that just by running a few commands. Now the command that we're going to look at is going to be smart portal stop. And as we can see, if we run that command, it's going to say stopping the checkpoint WMD daemon, the checkpoint watchdog daemon, and it's going to stop the actual checkpoint HTTP daemon. And all those type of informations are, and that's pretty much stopped at that point. Now, if you want to restart that, you could just change the stop to an actual start and hit enter here, and then we're going to restart those daemons. So let's go ahead and clear off of here. Now let me show you the next thing that we want to see is the actual directory where all this is installed at. So the best thing to do is do a change directory to /opt, and then do a ls to see the actual directory. And then right here we see a cp portal -r70. So that's where you want to go. So you do a change directory, drop that in. Let's clear our slate here, do a list. And alright, so we have our option here for the actual portal. Then license.txt, cp install directory, and w our webis directory. So where we want to go is change directory to the actual portal. And inside this directory, let's do a list. And we have a few options here. We have a log directory, we have a conf, bin, an SU directory, HTTPD cert directory, lib, and a www directory. The two that you're most concerned with are the conf and the actual log directory. So let's do a change directory to log, do a list, and you have a few options here. And these are the two log files that you want to deal with the most, is the checkpoint wmd.elg log file, and this is the HTTPD log file. So let's actually do a more on each one of these here and just take a look at exactly what's in them. So if we do more on cpht tab, and that does require that we spell more correctly. So let's go ahead and backspace that, and it's more, and there we go. And this basically is going to tell us that the information that we started the daemon or we stopped the daemon, and all the good information that we would see in this particular log file is accessible at this point. Now we could also do a more on the other log file, which is going to be the actual checkpoint WMD. So let's do cpwmd and look at that log file as well. There we go. Alright, so it's basically saying that this particular daemon is running, and whenever we actually issue a smart portal stop and start, it tells us right here in this log file that the signal is going to die, and that it's basically doing a countdown as that daemon is going down in the process structure. So we have from 15 to 6. So those are the two daemons that you pretty much want to know about. So let's do a cd space ... to jump up a directory. Let's clear our slate, do a list, and let's cd over to our conf directory. And inside of our conf, let's do a list, and we have a few more files here that we really want to look at. So the one that is pretty much everything that we really want to control on the management portal is going to be this particular file right here, the cp_httpd_admin.conf file. So if we do a actual more on that particular file, we can see some options here. Let's say, for example, if you want to make some changes and some different things to the actual structure of the portal file, you can do that type of information right here. And it tells us that this file was automatically generated by Smart Portal installation whenever we actually installed it. Is it active? That's set to a 1. The IP address is basically this box 0.0.0 on port 4433. Now if you wanted to change your actual port that's accessible on the Smart Portal, you could change this information right here by simply VIing this comp file and putting in whatever particular port that you want the web portal to advertise to your outside and customers. And it basically is also gives us the information about where the web root, where the actual server cert information is. We can see the actual temp directory, the log directory, and all that good information. So that's pretty much everything that we need to know about our Checkpoint Smart Portal application. Like I said, I know this is a great application. It's going to come in very useful. And I've actually deployed it this week as I'm speaking to you guys, and that's basically a solution that I had a customer needed. They needed the ability, because of management constraints, to be able to not allow certain administrators read access to all the information. They just wanted them to be able to view objects and to look at security logs, but they didn't want to give them an actual smart console login. So that's where I had suggested that we set up our smart management or our smart portal, and we deployed that in the customer's environment. It worked out very well because he can display an actual website, give that to some junior administrators for them to be able to view security rules and to look at checkpoint log files without having to give them actual full access or going through the actual hassle of installing the smart console application on some third-party contractor machines. So that's, like I said, Smart Portal is going to be a great tool. Learn to love it, and it's going to make your life a lot easier.
One, I hope you feel empowered now that we've been through the R70 Management Portal nugget and we can see exactly how we want to use this product in our own environments. In this particular nugget, we saw exactly how to deploy this product using a virtual machine. So we covered our virtual machine configuration settings, and we also looked at our software installation steps where we saw exactly how we want to install Secure Platform in order to get our management portal up and running. We looked at our smart dashboard configuration on how we want to set up our actual object in our dashboard. And we talked about our overall configuration and the sync process that's going to take place in order to get the objects from the smart dashboard and to be able to log in via that web browser instance directly into our management server using our management portal. And then we went through our actual navigation of all of our portal settings, and we saw exactly what we can do with the R70 management portal, and we saw exactly how it can be valuable to us in our own environment as well as an auditing situation where you need to provide that access to a third party. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.